very fast out of town. Does he help them win? You're under 500. Aaron Judge helps the Yankees win. You're paying the player $300 million. You better be sure that guy's going to help you get over the hump. For some reason, this guy is completely lost on calling plays. Maybe he's a therapist. Did you see Lamar Jackson cry to the referee? No, he didn't. We are back for a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Remember, you can call us at 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings for all our shows is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Speedy, what's going on, man?
Well, happy the Mets clinched the playoff spot. That's about it for today.
It's been a crazy, crazy weekend and a lot of crazy things that have happened in sports. If you're a Jet fan, you can't be happy. If you're a Giant fan, well, you expected it. The New York Knicks make a big move on Friday night to add Karl Anthony Towns. We will get into that in just a few moments. But, yeah, it's been crazy. And it's a great football week, even though the games are so lopsided. And to me, with football, every single week, there's a challenge every single week. And we all know the Kansas City Chiefs are expected to go to the Super Bowl. So they knock off the Chargers this week. Very close game. Another game that Patrick Mahomes just didn't show up to. I don't care. Anybody that puts Patrick Mahomes as an MVP caliber quarterback this year is crazy. He's not having the season that everybody thought he was going to have. Either has Travis Kelce. But Travis Kelce looked like Travis Kelce on Sunday, at least a little bit. No touchdowns, 80-something yards. It was a pretty good day for Travis, and they had to make shirts to get Travis more involved. What team? I just want to, before we get into our show, what team goes out there because their player is just being drop-kicked by every single analyst throughout the world, and then they make shirts, just a love fest for Travis Kelce. It made no sense. But again, it is the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's very expected that the Kansas City Chiefs would do something that horrific. And I say horrific, it's not even a word, but it's a moron and it's terrific. So you put it together, it's horrific. But anyways, yeah. So it's been a crazy week. And I want to mention two deaths that happened over the last 24 hours. First death, Dikembe Mutombo dies with a brain tumor, cancer in the brain, passed away at the age of 58, one of the greatest defensive players in NBA history. If anybody doesn't remember Dikembe Mutombo, he was the one that waved his finger up in the air when he blocked somebody. And he's like, not me, so he will be missed. May he rest in peace to Dikembe Mutombo. I didn't even know that he had cancer. I don't even know if his family knew that he had cancer. Maybe they did, but horrible news for the NBA. So my heart goes out to him and his family. And then just really recently, TMZ and a bunch of other, I guess, companies that reach out. ESPN also posted it on their social media that Pete Rose passed away today. And just a few moments ago, at the age of 83, Pete Rose, who I think has been disrespected by the MLB, and he got a chance to see what was going on before he passed away this year with Shohei Ohtani, who I have no idea. And I'm just speaking the truth here. And that's Dikembe Mutombo, ladies and gentlemen. Again, one of the greatest defensive centers we've ever seen. And I guess you could say he didn't play power forward, but at the tail end of his career, he did play power forward a little bit on Miami. I think he was on Miami for a little bit. So, like I said, may he rest in peace. But the Pete Rose, a guy that I've been sticking up for a long, long time, who I think should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, Rob Manfred and baseball analysts and all the baseball writers are going to obviously put him in the Baseball Hall of Fame in the next year or two, being that he's passed away and he's no longer, or he can no longer get involved with the MLB. This guy is going to go to the Hall of Fame. One of the greatest hitters, and arguably the greatest hitter to ever play in Major League Baseball. He will be missed. The one thing I could tell you about Pete Rose, I met Pete Rose years and years ago at a card show. And what I loved about Pete Rose is he was so honest, so, dedicated to his fans. He signed everything. He was so interactive with the fans. And that's what I loved about Pete Rose. It wasn't, listen, you didn't like the way he played the game. I loved the way he played the game. I got a chance to see him at the tail end of his career in the 80s. But Pete Rose was just an explosive player that didn't give a crap what you thought about him. And if he needed to run into a catcher or rush the pitcher because somebody threw at him, Pete Rose was that type of guy. He was just a lightning bolt and a person that I think a lot of ex-baseball players or even baseball players that know a little bit about Pete Rose or was raised, speaking story or fathers and mothers talking about Pete Rose and the stories behind Pete Rose and what he did with the Big Red Machine and just the outstanding player he was. My heart goes out to the Rose family. My heart goes out to all the Cincinnati fans out there that were just in love with the type of player that he was. And I was a big fan. I actually have a jersey of Pete Rose. I didn't find out until probably a few moments ago that he passed away. So I didn't get a chance to put on his jersey. I am wearing Minnesota jersey, and you're probably wondering why I'm doing that, but we will get into that in just a few moments. But yeah, congratulations to a great life and a great career of one of the greatest baseball players to ever play the game, and that's Pete Rose. May he rest in peace. So my heart goes out to the Rose family.
Absolutely. Both of them icons in their sport too. Pete Rose, like Charlie Hustle, as they know it, was a great influence on and off the field, obviously with all the controversy, but I agree with you. Like the fact that the Hall of Fame can't put him in now is shameful. And Dikembe Mutombo, one of the best shot blockers we've ever seen. It definitely was an influence to international basketball too, or in Africa as well.
Well, we don't know when he is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, but best believe that Pete Rose in the next year or two will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. There's no way the writers are going to keep him out. He'll definitely get in. It's just a shame that he'll never get a chance to see it. And I don't understand what Bud Selig, and Bud Selig over the years has allowed steroids. He didn't want steroids, but he allowed it. And it helped baseball when the strike happened in 94, 95 and helped, when it came back with McGuire and Sosa and then Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and all the craziness that happened over the years after that. It's shameful that baseball kept Pete Rose out of the one big spot that baseball players are always going to be appreciated. He is in Cooperstown. There's all different things. His bat, his glove is in Cooperstown, but Pete Rose was never inducted into Cooperstown. So shameful that the MLB really didn't look at him as a commodity. As a matter of fact, they thought he was a joke after being, obviously the accusations that he bet on baseball, which he did. He admitted to it, but he admitted to betting for his team, not against his team. So I never understood or understand why baseball kept this guy out of the Cooperstown, out of the Hall of Fame. So again, may Dikembe Mutombo and Pete Rose rest in peace. My heart goes out to them and their families. So it's been crazy. We've had some problems, and I know everybody's seeing it right now. There's no background. There's no overlay. I want to apologize to all the fans for at least tonight. We're not going to have any, but we'll have some videos. We'll have all that other stuff. And a little bit later in the show at 8 o'clock, we'll be talking to ChatSports Steelers and NFL analyst Jack Sperry. He's been on our show before. I'd love to hear his take on the Justin Fields situation. So I told you to reach out to him, and thank you, Speedy, for doing that. Michael Mandelbaum, his son, Andrew, is a good friend with Anthony, Pags, a talented high school baseball player that is recovering from a car crash in West Babylon. I don't know if you heard about this. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, There was an accident. 5 kids passed away in this car. It was hit by a drunk driver. Andrew was the only one, Anthony was the only one to survive in the accident. So he just came out of his coma. He is breathing on a respirator, but he's alive, and it looks like he's going to live. So,
and also there's a GoFundMe page and
we'll talk
YouTube
about that.
Page.
Yes.
You could click the link to donate as well to help out Anthony.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will promote it throughout the show, especially when we go to our breaks. Anthony and family is going to need all the help they can get, and right now, any support for Anthony and his family, please go to our YouTube page or go to where do they find it, Speedy? GoFundMe. And how do you find the page, Speedy?
Click the link on the YouTube page.
The YouTube page, and it's right over there. You hit it. Right now, they've raised over $21,000. The more the merrier for Anthony, a very good young baseball player, and hopefully soon he'll get a chance to get back on the field and play baseball again. But horrible story. Happy that he's alive, but sad that 5 of his peers have passed away. Horrible story. So many deaths with these car accidents, these drunk drivers. What are they thinking? I mean, seriously, I have no idea why people would put, people at risk. If you can't drink and first of all, you shouldn't be drinking and driving, but if you can't drive or you're drinking, if you're just having a shot and you can't, if it's not around the corner, don't drive. Don't drive. You shouldn't even drink. If you drink anything, you shouldn't be driving. Walk home or take an Uber. Nobody should be at risk. I don't even know why I even said, even if having a shot. I don't drink, so I don't know anything about it. But nobody should drink and drive. If you're taking anything, if you're smoking, if you're doing any kind of drug, call an Uber. It's easy. Call a taxi. Call something. Call a Lyft. Don't put anybody at risk. So we're gonna have a very special guest a little bit later on the show, as we will be talking to Michael Mandelbaum. He will be joining us a little, speaking about Andrew and his friendship with Anthony. And is Andrew going to come on? Is he?
He said he didn't really want to. He wasn't really comfortable talking.
All right, so we'll have Michael on. So looking forward to getting Michael on, and we'll get to hear some stories and how obviously Anthony is doing right now in the hospital. So the big story over the weekend, and I know everybody heard about it, is a lot, and Knicks fans should be very excited about this. And it's funny because Fish was talking about it for the last 2 weeks. I've been speaking about this since the season's end. The Knicks had a chance to land a big-time superstar, and what Dante DiVincenzo did last year in the playoffs and what he did throughout the season, hitting all those threes. He had one of those seasons that you can't forget, over 200 3-point shots. It was fantastic. And Julius Randle, who's been a big part of the Knicks' growth over the last 5 seasons. Obviously, the bricklayer, I've been speaking about him over the playoffs. The guy doesn't show up to the playoffs and can't stay healthy throughout the full season. But a guy like Julius Randle, who averaged last year about 24 and 10, he's been averaging a double-double pretty much over the last 3 seasons. He's been an all-star twice and an all-NBA player, I think, twice in the past 3 years. He gets so here's the story. The Athletic Fred Katz reports that the Timberwolves have traded Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. Katz also added that the 2 teams have been talking about this deal for the last 3 months, so it shouldn't be a surprise. There were also reports that earlier that in the offseason that the Timberwolves wouldn't be able to afford some of their top players because they were affected by the NBA TV deal. The Timberwolves will get back Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a protected first-round draft pick by the Pistons, and 2 bench players that just signed. Dante DiVincenzo was reportedly unhappy in New York with the potential playing time and not as much into the Nova Knicks idea. Paul Pierce said on his podcast that he still doesn't see the New York Knicks winning a championship in his lifetime. Towns averaged 21.8 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, and 3 assists per game in 62 games last season. First of all, just to get into what Paul Pierce said, Paul Pierce can't stand the New York Knicks. He played for Boston for so many years, and he was a Boston Celtic practically his whole career before the tail end. I mean, he played at the tail end, I think it was the Clippers, and he was a Brooklyn Net. He was a Boston Celtic his whole career. So, of course, just like Danny Ainge couldn't stand the Knicks and did whatever he could to screw the New York Knicks when the Knicks wanted to make a trade with him, a.k.a. we all know what happened over there in Utah and why they didn't get the Spider. This same thought with Paul Pierce coming out and saying what he said about the New York Knicks, saying that he will never see or doesn't believe he'll see the Knicks win a championship in his lifetime. He can't stand them. So, of course, the great, whatever he calls himself, the truth, comes out and says that the New York Knicks will never win a championship in his lifetime. What a bogus statement. But another pal of his, Kevin Garnett, said something on his podcast recently. And he said adding Karl Anthony Towns could only tell you one thing, that the Knicks could be on their way of the brink of a championship competitive team. Now, a brink, I don't know about that. I think they're a top 3, top 4 team right now in the NBA. Going into the offseason and adding Mikal Bridges, I thought that they were as competitive and ready to win, adding a piece like that and having Julius Randle come back and all the depth that the New York Knicks had going into the regular season last year and the depth that they were going to have going into the season this year. I thought the Knicks were going to be as competitive as they've been over the last couple of years. But this move for Karl Anthony Towns, Cat, was absolutely needed. And the reason why is Mitchell Robinson, which came out a week ago, he was not going to be back until February. January, the earliest, but they're saying probably February. They needed size. They're the smallest team or one of the smallest teams in the Eastern Conference. And they were talking about putting, I don't know, they were saying Julius Randle at the 5. They were also talking about OG playing the 5. It made no sense. Now, obviously, Tom Thibodeau last year played very, very small. And why did he play very, very small? Because they didn't have that many size players. Hartenstein, who played and was fighting injury on and off all season. Mitchell Robinson couldn't stay healthy all season long. So they were very small. They were playing very, very small last year. And in the playoffs, it caught up to the New York Knicks, as we saw against Indiana. But I will say this, and if you're a New York Knicks fan, this move for Karl Anthony Towns was absolutely needed. It puts them in position now to compete with the Boston Celtics. It puts them in position now to obviously compete with the Greek Freak. Now, Milwaukee doesn't have the depth this year that everybody thought they were going to have last year. But Milwaukee, with Lopez coming back and Giannis, they have a tremendous amount of size. And even Middleton, he's a big guy. So the Knicks would be playing small against these big teams in the Eastern Conference. The Karl Anthony Towns move, what it does for the New York Knicks is it spreads their offense out. Karl Anthony Towns is a great three-point shooter. He's a career 39% three-point shooter, almost 40% for a guy that big. It's tremendous. It opens up. It's going to open up the pick and roll at the top of the key for the New York Knicks. And the thing about what makes Julius Randle so great and what made him great last year is the pick and roll was great, but they didn't have three-point shooters at the big, at the 5 or even at the 4. Because Julius Randle, yes, he's on and off. He's hot and cold at the three-point line. He missed a significant amount of time. And Julius Randle had one of his best seasons as a pro before he got hurt. But Julius Randle, even last year, at some points was not hitting the 3. Karl Anthony Towns opens up the three-point line for the big man. And what does it do for him when he plays the pick and roll at the top of the key and he drives to the rim? He's going to draw players and it's going to open up, obviously open shots for Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby. It's going to spread out the offense. It's going to open up the talent pool that the Knicks have with OG and Mikal Bridges and their starting lineup that they have. Is this the best starting lineup right now in the Eastern Conference? I don't know. Now, we all know what Jason Tatum can do and White did last year, making the Olympic team. We all know what, obviously, certain players like Brown and that great Boston Celtic team is and what they produce on the bench. And they played fantastic and very well deserved last year, winning a championship. But the New York Knicks adding this kind of depth, and everybody says, well, they lost depth. They really didn't. And I'm going to tell you why. They drafted Kolek. Kolek is a guard that they really, really like. He's not going to be in the lineup early this season, but he's a guy that is going to be pivoting. If something goes on with, obviously, Jalen Brunson or any one of the guards, they're going to bring Kolek in. It gives them a little bit more depth to play with. And they've added some pieces in Payne. So they have enough pieces going into this season to make a trade like this for Karl Anthony Towns. I think he's a top 3 big man right now in the NBA. I do not believe he was very happy in Minnesota over the last couple of years. Anthony Edwards was the superstar there. He lost his number one role because over the last 2 years, Anthony Edwards has really been the face of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my breath. But what I love about Karl Anthony Towns is he's a team player. It's not about me. Julius Randle over the last couple of years has always been about himself. That R.J. Barrett trade, I think he had some problems with R.J. Barrett when they brought OG Anunoby here to the organization. I think that it changed the spectrum of this team. And he realized that Jalen Brunson was the number one guy. But even him, as a transitional player that he was, and a two-way, and trying to develop his two-way position as a New York Knick, I think it opened up his thoughts that he wasn't going to fit here with the New York Knicks. And I think Tom Thibodeau, over the last couple of months, on some of the thoughts and off-season moves that the Knicks have made, I thought was pretty fitting that Julius Randle wasn't going to be a part of the future of this organization. And Mikal Bridges tells it and sells it all. Mikal Bridges is the same player as Julius Randle, just a better defensive player, maybe not as good as offensively as Julius Randle, but he could be a guy that's going to give you 20, 22 points off the bench. You could start him and give you 20 to 22 points as a starter, as a 3. And I just think that I thought it was never going to work. And now you bring in a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, he's a guy that's going to spread the floor. He's going to give you 20-something points. He's going to give you 10 rebounds, and he's going to give you that really important need for size in the middle, which the Knicks needed after losing Mitchell Robinson over the last week.
Yeah, it was very necessary for them to get in some capacity. I'm surprised they were able to do it this fast right before the season started because Karl Anthony Towns is as big of a name, but like the report was saying, like they've been negotiating it for months. So that kind of thing, the Timberwolves clearly had interest in Julius Randle. I didn't think they wanted to trade Dante DiVincenzo, but they had to do it in order to make it work. And maybe he wasn't as on board of the Nova Knicks thing as we thought. Fine, but I think that was more about him not getting the playing time, which he'll definitely get in Minnesota because that was one of their big weaknesses in the playoffs. Outside of Anthony Edwards, they didn't really have much on the wings. So they got that end of it, but the Knicks didn't have to trade as much as we expected either. At the same time, Julius Randle was going to go in any trade, but they needed the size badly. They got it.
Dante DiVincenzo didn't want to be there. I mean, the story is coming out is he was losing time. He wasn't going to play as much. He loved the fact that he played a lot in the playoffs, especially with all the injuries, and he wasn't going to get that time. McBride played, in some aspects in Indiana. When he played Indiana, he did not play well, but against Philadelphia, McBride showed up. I think they felt that McBride was a better fit than Dante DiVincenzo, because I've heard there were stories coming out that the Timberwolves were interested in McBride Miles McBride more than they were interested in Dante DiVincenzo. But DiVincenzo I've heard over the last week, 2 weeks, when the Knicks were thinking about making this move, and I don't think this was some crazy thought that the Knicks just made this move at the end of the season, before the season started. I thought that the Knicks knew that they had to speed up this process because of the fact that the season was right around the corner, and Mitchell Robinson, as they heard through the doctors and what the doctor said, there were stories coming out that there's a chance that Mitchell Robinson would be back in December. Now they're saying he might not be back in February. The Knicks cannot go into February in the middle of the season, 3-4 months into the season, knowing that they're fighting for a playoff spot in an Eastern Conference that is so competitive now. There are 5 spots and 5 top teams. The Knicks cannot fall out of that top 4 spot if they expect to make a run for a championship. So they needed to make this move. I think it was a great move for the New York Knicks. We'll see how it works. We know what Towns did with Tom Thibodeau over there in Minnesota. It didn't work out, maybe because Jimmy Buckets was there and Jimmy Buckets was messing around with his girlfriend. Those were the stories. But Tom Thibodeau and Karl Anthony Towns did not work very well over there in Minnesota the time that he was there as the GM/coach. But I think it's different. I think it's run different. Leon Rose was his agent. We all know the background behind Cat and what he can do. And I think Cat wanted to be here. Cat's from New Jersey. He grew up a New York Knicks fan. He lives, an hour away from Madison Square Garden. He loves that he gets to come back. He gets to play for his dream team, playing in New York and get a chance to win a championship here with Jalen Brunson and some of these players. I think he's very, very happy here. He's not the guy, but he's the number 2 guy. And I think he'll be very, very happy. By the way, Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns were in the 3-point contest this past year in the All-Star game. So we all know what these guys could do at the 3-point line. Losing Dante DiVincenzo was a loss, but I don't think it was as big of loss as everybody else. I was at a bar when this trade happened, and a bunch of people couldn't stand the trade. I know a lot of analysts that loved it, but there were some people that said they couldn't stand losing Dante DiVincenzo. And look, Julius Randle, you lost the depth. I don't see them losing the depth. They brought in some acquisitions. And by the way, Morris is gone now. The Knicks dropped him. They drafted Kolick. I think what they're trying to do now is implement certain players and some of these youngsters. We all know Tom Thibodeau doesn't like playing youngsters. You're going to see a lot of Josh Hart this year in that starting lineup earlier this season. I think eventually they're going to move him to that second team off the bench. But I love what the Knicks have done this offseason. I think they're out there to win a championship. Now they got to go out there and do what they said they were going to do, and that's win. And that's something that I want to see early in the season. I know it's hard to get this bunch of players that weren't playing together early and really didn't play at all last year. When you bring in Mikal Bridges, he played with Jalen Brunson. He knows the strength and weaknesses of Jalen Brunson. And Karl Anthony Towns, he's never played with all these guys, but he is a team player. He's not a me player. I love that about Karl Anthony Towns because he's going to go out there and he's going to do whatever the team needs him to do. So I think it was a great move by the New York Knicks. If you're a Knicks fan, you should be very excited. And for all the Knicks haters out there that didn't think that Leon Rose knows what he's doing or he couldn't get it done, boy, oh boy, this was a slam effing dunk. Love it. And I was excited when I heard it. I know Fish came out and said it last week that he said this would be the big move that the Knicks needed to make. They made it. So let's go. The season is 3 weeks away? Let's get it started. Let the Knicks go on an early 8-9-0, winning streak. And compete with the Boston Celtics because Boston started off slow last year and it ended very, very strong. The Knicks need to start off strong like they did last year and can be consistent. The problem with the Knicks last year in the playoffs was the injury bug. If they can stay healthy and Mitchell Robinson comes back, you got Mitch, one of the best defensive players, one of the best rebounders in the league, and you got Karl Anthony Towns in that lineup, in the starting lineup. Just think what this team could do, even off the boards. They're going to be able to compete with the big teams, even if they have to play the Nuggets in the finals, if they go to the finals, or all these other big teams, OKC that added Hartenstein. They needed this, and Mitchell Robinson can control and understand what his strength is, and that's rebounding and blocking. And when Mitchell Robinson comes back, you could start using Karl Anthony Towns on the perimeter to make his shots and open up the field for himself and other players. And that's why I love this move. This is a great move and a slam dunk, absolute A+ for Leon Rose and Worldwide West. I love you guys. Keep up the good work. And I don't think the Knicks are done because at the trade deadline, I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks make another big move that can obviously give them another boost moving forward. So great move. I was very excited to hear that over the weekend, over Friday's, craziness in football and college football that was happening over the weekend. So when we come back, he's been waiting very, very patiently. We will be talking to ChatSports Steelers and NFL analyst. I can't wait to get him on because I want to know his thoughts of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jack Sperry.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You're listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listing for all our shows is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. I want to apologize to all the fans. I know everybody's wondering why the background wire overlays aren't working. We had a problem with StreamYard, so we're trying to fix it. It probably won't be fixed tonight. It'll be fixed on Wednesday. Don't worry. But somebody that's been calmly and patiently waiting, a guy that should have smiles on his face. I know they lost yesterday, but he should be smiling. We are now talking to, obviously, ChatSports Steelers and NFL analyst, our friend, Jack Sperry. Jack, what's up, buddy?
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on the show again.
Absolutely. And, it's crazy, Jack, because there's so much to get into. And one of the things that really stood out to me over the last few weeks is Justin Fields. And I know everybody's going to say, well, his numbers don't show why he's an elite quarterback. He doesn't have to be elite with this defense. This is arguably the best defense in football. It didn't show yesterday, but throughout the first 3 weeks, this is as good of a defense as any defense in football with TJ Watt and Highsmith and all the Fitzpatrick. This is an explosive defense. Really fun to watch. But the one thing that stood out to me more than anything was what Justin Fields needed to do. Nobody thought that he was supposed to start. Russell Wilson was the guy. Everybody heard from Tomlin over the last couple of weeks of preseason that this is his guy. It's Russell Wilson. And then Russell Wilson gets hurt. And then Justin Fields takes over and wins 3 games in a row and really showed his captaincy. I think, one of the better leaders that we've seen. The last leader I remember to lead this team under center was Ben Roethlisberger. I think this guy and Justin Fields more likable than Ben Roethlisberger. What were your thoughts when they decided to, obviously because of injury, decided to put Justin Fields in, and really the last couple of weeks decided to keep him in?
Well, you have Russ with that calf tightness that he had during the training camp, and then he didn't play in the preseason all that much, and he was out for practice for quite a bit in Latrobe. But then you get into the season, and days before that first game in Atlanta, it pops again, and it's just. But it's the one I'm hearing right now. Russ hasn't been able to really run at all these past 4 weeks. Now, I think it was Rappaport said that Russ is expected to be healthy now for this Week 5 game against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. But Errol, I think you're going to be very excited to hear that I am fully on the Justin Fields train here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am very excited about this kid's future with the team. Like you said, he's not an elite quarterback. No. He still has warts with his game. He's not an elite mental processor. His accuracy isn't top 10 or top 15 in the league. But he is a dynamic playmaker. He makes plays with his legs. He makes plays out of structure. And that's what the Steelers offense needs right now. They have injuries on the offensive line. They have 3 starting offensive linemen out for the season. Now, they had depth at offensive line, so you're hoping some of these younger guys step up. But then you also have a lackluster run game right now. Jaylen Warren, who was really their big splash play running back last year, had a hamstring issue. Now he has a knee issue, didn't play last week. And then in the wide receiver position, you got George Pickens, who's freaking unbelievable. He's a top 10 receiver in the league, in my opinion. But then you got nobody else. You got Van Jefferson as your number 2 receiver. He has 5 catches for 36 yards in the first 4 weeks. That's unacceptable. And then Calvin Austin III is dynamic with the ball in his hands, but he's just too tiny to be a run blocker on early down. So right now, I think this Steelers offense, to be functional, you need a guy like Fields that can make plays with his legs outside of structure, make things happen. And he was the reason why the Steelers were in the ball game and with a chance to win the game yesterday against the Colts. I mean, you look at what happened there. You go down 17-0, 3 possession deficit early in that football game. And in the second half, Fields leads 3 straight touchdown drives. Every single one of those drives, he either got a massive third down conversion with his legs, or he scored a touchdown with his legs when nothing was open. So I think if you bring Russell Wilson in at this point, who's more of just a true pocket passer, he's not the playmaker he used to be. I think this offensive line isn't going to be able to protect him. I don't think these wide receivers are going to get open for him. And this run game isn't as bruising as I was expecting heading into the year. So right now, I think Justin Fields is the guy. He's protecting the football. He's completing over 70% of his passes, which we've never seen from him in his career. He's playing really good football. He's the leader of that locker room right now, and he almost led them back from a 3 possession deficit yesterday. He's definitely checked a lot of the boxes that I wanted to see him fill in order to be named this team's full-time starter. And I think tomorrow we'll see Mike Tomlin, the head coach, at his weekly press conference, name him the QB1.
Arthur Smith, what is your impressions of the way he's managed the offense so far? You mentioned like the depth of the receivers. There's questions with the offensive line with the talent, but do you think he's done better, that much better than what they had last year? And what are your impressions of him, who's very criticized?
So, it's not Matt Canada. All right. Matt Canada was the worst offensive coordinator in football for multiple seasons. Arthur Smith has come in, and like we talked about earlier, there is some things holding this offense back. Offensive line shifting around, lack of wide receiver talent. He's not the GM. He doesn't decide who is on the team. He might make suggestions, but he doesn't make decisions. So I think that he's definitely hamstrung a little bit here. But, I do think that he does bring a little bit more of a vanilla type of defense. He runs what he runs. He likes to run just certain types of formations. He's not one of these new school Shanahan, McVay guys that'll go to a bunch of different formations, bunch of creative screens and stuff. He's pretty old school Shanahan offense in that way. I think that he's done an okay job, is what I'll say. I've been a little bit disappointed with some of the 3 tight end stuff that he's done. I mean, like, I think the other day he ran 4 verticals with Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward as the 3 receivers on one side of the field. It's like nobody's going to get open in that situation. So there's definitely been examples where I've been like, what are we doing? Art, not a good play call there. But I also think that he's hamstrung a little bit with the personnel on the Steelers offense right now.
We are talking to ChatSports Steelers and NFL analyst Jack Sperry. If you don't know who he is, well, he does a YouTube podcast. He's fantastic. He does so many different things for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He knows his Pittsburgh Steelers just as well as anybody does in the business. I wanted to get him on the show because this Justin Fields thing, I was so excited when they decided to go with Justin Fields, maybe because of injury, but now I know that this guy is the future of this organization. I love Justin Fields because of who he is and what he stands for. I'm not saying Caleb Williams isn't going to be a star in this league. I do believe he is, but I think they made a big mistake because I believe that Chicago has Eberflus running that organization. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. I know that Mike Tomlin knows what he's doing. And now you're seeing Mike Tomlin develop a quarterback who I believe has all the talent in the world. I think he was the best quarterback in that class from Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and that crappy crust. But I just think he's really starting to develop into the player that he is. What's so interesting, Jack, is watching the Pittsburgh Steelers and just noticing how fluent this defense is. They're so fast up front. They can do so many different things, run so many different audibles and different, nickels and all the different things that they can do with the talent that they have on the corners. They got obviously TJ Watt. They have Highsmith. They have so many different playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. What to you this year has stood out? I know obviously TJ Watt and what he could do in Highsmith, but what defensively has stood out to this defense? What makes this defense so fun to watch?
So really, Mike Tomlin kind of runs the same system. He's run the same system ever since he was there in Tampa Bay as an assistant when Monty Kiffin was running the Tampa 2 with Tony Dungy there. And then, of course, Gruden came in. He stayed on his crew there in Tampa, but he's pretty much run the same stuff. It's cover 3 early on in with like first and second down. Then he'll go to Tampa 2, and then he'll throw in some exotic blitz stuff on third down. That's about it. And that kind of defense has worked for, literally 20 years now for a reason. And Mike Tomlin has done that in Pittsburgh for so long. And in this system, Errol, what you need is an excellent pass rush, and then you need a number one island corner that you can trust one-on-one in press coverage against another team's receiver. What that allows you to do is the Steelers can get pressure and quick pressure with just 4 rushers. Their pass rush is the best in football. TJ Watt, in my opinion, is the best pass rusher in the world. He might be the best football player in the world. He's that good. Then we got Alex Highsmith, who's injured right now, but he's excellent as well. And he's also really good in coverage, which gives the Steelers some flexibility there. The guy they have working in with him right now while he's injured is Nick Herbig, a second-year player out of Wisconsin who is freaking unbelievable as well off the edge. Then inside, you got Cam Hayward. A lot of people said he was done last year. He was dealing with a groin injury. He got that fixed this offseason. Looks just as good as Cam Hayward has ever played. And then this new guy, man, Keanu Benson, second year out of Wisconsin, another Badger for this Steelers defense, man. Freaking monster. beautiful, beautiful bull rush, pushes that pocket, allows opportunities for Herbig and Watt on the outside. So they can get to the quarterback with 4, which allows them to play coverage on the back end. They don't have to blitz as much. And then Joey Porter Jr., their number 1 corner on the outside, all he's done since entering the league out of Penn State last year, man, is shut down opposing number 1s in press coverage. Super long arms, very physical. He'll get grabby from time to time, but he shuts down an opposing team's number 1. So what they can do because of that is they can rotate coverage away from Joey Porter Jr. to the rest of the receivers, and it's just so little space to work with. So if you're an opposing quarterback, you have to deal with that pass rush with just 4 players that get in your lap immediately, and then the Steelers can play super tight coverage because Joey Porter Jr. is locking down the number 1 guy. If you have a great pass rush like the Steelers and a number 1 island corner like Joey Porter Jr., it's going to be tough to have a bad defense. Let's say that. So that's kind of the formula there in Pittsburgh. It's been that formula for a while. They haven't had a number 1 type corner like Joey Porter Jr. in a while, but now they do, and you see the results.
So we were talking about the wide receivers earlier, like getting them maybe that second guy, and we were talking about it with some of the injuries that have happened with the wide receiver position, maybe potential trade deadline targets for a lot of these teams that could be selling. Is there any particular one that you think would be a good one for the Steelers to be able to fit either a big name or even just a guy maybe on an expiring contract?
So I've been talking about this a lot on my show. Obviously, we talked about the Brandon Ayuk stuff for months on end, and unfortunately, that didn't go the way that we wanted. Even though he's kind of not playing very well right now, so maybe we dodged a bullet. But to answer your question, Petey, I think that the 2 names that stick out to me right now are Cortland Sutton and DeAndre Hopkins. Cortland is in the final year of his contract. That team in Denver, they got a good defense, but obviously Bo Nix and that offense have been struggling to start. Maybe they're selling at the deadline. And then DeAndre Hopkins is a very interesting name to me because he's very similar to George Pickens. And I don't think the Steelers would say no to having 2 similar guys at the wide receiver position. They tried to get Mike Williams, another bigger downfield threat, until he signed with your Jets, Errol. Thanks a lot for that, by the way. I wish he was a Steeler right now.
Oh,
But,
please.
I think that Cortland Sutton, DeAndre Hopkins, both of these guys are downfield threats. They make tough catches down the field. What does Justin Fields like to do, Errol? He likes to throw the ball down the field, and that's what they want him to do, man. And right now, all he can do is throw the ball at George Pickens, but he's double covered on most of the time. But if you get DeAndre Hopkins, who is a good run blocker, who can make those tough catches down the field, I think GP is better after the catch than D-Hop at this point in their respective careers. But if you have 2 guys on the perimeter that can make those tough catches down the field, I think that's a huge, huge upgrade for the Steelers offense this year.
We are talking to ChatSports Steelers and NFL analyst Jack Sperry. And you know what's funny, Jack? Devontae Adams is a big name that everybody keeps talking about. It doesn't look like the Raiders are very happy, or he's not very happy with the Raiders, which we expected. Now, I don't know if he'll go and play for the Steelers, but there are stories. I mean, obviously, the Jets are not getting enough from Garrett Wilson. Maybe the Jets look to Devontae Adams if he becomes available at the trade deadline. But if they can't make a move for him with this Hassan Reddick thing, it's been absolutely bogus for the New York Jets. Maybe they decide to move Hassan Reddick and bring in Devontae Adams. But if not, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that have been looking for that superstar wide receiver. Devontae Adams would absolutely fit over there. Could you imagine George Pickens on one side and Devontae Adams on the other? He'll make Justin Fields look like he's Brett Favre. I mean, seriously, he would make him look like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, when you have a weapon that good that can just spread out your offense, do so many things. You can move him in the slot. You can move him on the outside. You could do so many different things. He gives you the size that you're looking for, what you were trying to get in the offseason. I mean, he's everything. Why couldn't he go to the Pittsburgh Steelers if he becomes available?
Well, he absolutely could, Errol. Obviously, he's a great player. He still is. I mean, on Steelers Twitter, people keep every time I bring up Devontae Adams, they're like, he's 31. He's way too old. No, he's not. He's still one of the best receivers in football. And the Steelers would be damn lucky to have him on their football team, especially because they're trying to win now. All right. If the age thing would matter to me, if this was a rebuilding football team, and yeah, maybe you don't want to add a 31-year-old receiver to a rebuilding squad, but this is a team that clearly wants to win now. They got the defense to win now. They feel like they have a guy in Justin Fields that can win now. They just need another receiver. Now, the thing that's tricky about Devontae is I'm not sure he gets it dealt because he does have 3 years, including this year, on his contract. So the Raiders are going to want a lot for him. And honestly, I'm not sure if Antonio Pierce is going to want to let him go. Personally, I think the only way Devontae's out of there is if he straight up asks for a trade before the deadline. If you listen to him talk in press conferences and all this stuff, right now he's saying, I'm not getting traded. But obviously, things can change in the National Football League extremely quickly. They keep losing games. Gardner Minshew continues to look like a steaming pile of garbage, even though that steaming pile of garbage beat Deshaun Watson, the other steaming pile of garbage in the National Football League
Everybody's
last week.
beaten Deshaun Watson, okay?
Exactly. And you know, I have to get my shot at the Browns fans out there. But, you know, Devontae, I think that he's an excellent talent. If he's made available, though, Errol, definitely going to be a lot of competition. Is Omar Khan going to be willing to make the highest bid for him? I don't know. Your Jets are definitely going to be interested. Kansas City right now needs a receiver. Maybe they'll be interested. But, I mean, that's an in-division trade. If the Raiders give Devontae Adams to the Chiefs, I think we'll all riot. But, you know, it's definitely an interesting proposition. I would be so excited if the Steelers got Devontae Adams. In fact, I promised my fans on my show that if we trade for Devontae, Errol, we're going live for 17 straight hours on Steelers Talk. So let's hope it happens.
17 hours? How the hell are you going to do? I could do 17 hours. I don't know if you could. Guys, talking Steelers for 17 hours?
You don't know me, Errol. Come on now.
Hey, listen, you're going to have to have a lot of guests. You're going to have a lot of guests to go 17 hours talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, what
Errol will join your live stream just to try
to we'll bring you on. We'll have some time to fill if they trade for Devontae Adams. We'll bring you guys on.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know why anybody wouldn't think that Devontae Adams would make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think Devontae Adams will go anywhere where he can win a Super Bowl. And to me right now, if there's any arguments that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have the best defense in football, well, then you're not watching, because this defense, I have them on two of my fantasy teams that I'm playing with. But nevertheless, I think this team is so explosive. They could do so many different things. Their secondary is very underrated. Everybody keeps talking about Porter, but people forget about Fitzpatrick. This is a good defense, and they could do so many different things in the open field that other teams can. I know everybody loves the Jets defense, but I did see the Jets give up an offensive play to Bo Nix in the third quarter, which cost the Jets a chance to knock off the Broncos. And by the way, the Broncos didn't absolutely deserve to win that game because the Jets offense was putrid. Nobody can run the right routes. It was horrible watching. It made me throw up. Okay. That's
sick. The Nathaniel Hackett experience for you.
Nathaniel Hackett, Bambi. Okay. I don't know if you'll watch this show. Bambi Sala, who's got his head between his legs every time the Jets, and then going up after the game. And I have a lot to say about the Jets. Don't worry, guys. What he said at the press conference made me want to, if I could jump through the screen and choke this man, I would have. I can't believe this guy still has a job. And if I was Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't be happy being coached by this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. He is an absolute joke. And honestly, when I look at Mike Tomlin and what he is and what he stands for as a head coach, this guy's had a winning record every single year, every single thing that he does, it works.
He did it with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky.
I know. Look at this guy. They can't get along. He can't even hug his own quarterback and actually get along with his quarterback. I mean, it's just everything about this team just spells lose, lose, lose when it comes down to it. I don't know. They're 2-2. It's not over yet. But to watch them lose against the Broncos at home the way they did, and by the way, Greg the Leg, who was one of the best kickers in the league last year, you're going to tell me, and he missed, by the way, he didn't miss just one kick in that game. He missed 2 of them. It was embarrassing. You're going to tell me when you're at home and you're kicking in a spot where you've been successful as a New York Jet for the last past year, you telling me you can't kick it through the hashes? It was embarrassing. I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to take away what I have to say when I get into it. But Jack, it was embarrassing. But your team right now, in my opinion, is right now the best team in the AFC. Just my opinion. Kansas City's so overrated. I know they're undefeated. Patrick Mahomes is not the same quarterback. Travis Kelce is not the same player. This team, they lose Rice yesterday. They're going to be looking and fishing for a wide receiver not many teams are going to give them a playmaking wide receiver. That nobody wants to see them win again this year. Okay, so they're not just going to hand a player over to them. So I think they're very screwed, and I think Kansas City is going to have a lot of problems moving forward for the rest of the season because they're going to have to search, and they better make Xavier Worthy the guy that everybody thought he was going to be, because if he doesn't, they're going to have trouble putting the ball in the end zone.
Yeah, just talking about the Steelers here a little bit. I think that for them to be AFC champions this year, they're going to have to really make sure these young offensive linemen pan out. They're going to have to make a move for a receiver that pans out, and this run game is going to have to get going at least eventually. But with the defense that they have, man, the sky's the limit if they can figure it out on offense for sure. In terms of Kansas City, watch out for Deontay Johnson, former Steeler, now playing for Carolina. If they decide to sell, I think that, sending him to the other conference, I think that they would offer him a pretty good draft pick. Obviously, Carolina needs those damn draft picks at this point. If anybody's going to give them a weapon, I would probably think it would be Carolina. Amari Cooper's another name to watch out there. Cleveland fans just hate Amari now because he's dropping some passes to start this season. But Kansas City, obviously losing Rice is huge. He was looking like a number one guy this year. He's just so good after the catch. Kelsey was better yesterday, but he's had a slow start. And they don't really have anyone else at this point. So if they can't land a receiver, they're going to be a team that's in trouble. Their defense is still pretty good, though. They win the ugly games. That's the thing about the Kansas City Chiefs. They've just been there and done that. So they win all those ugly games. You can say it's because of the refs, which is a fair point. But they definitely make big plays with Spags' defense. But they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. Just like last year, they didn't win the Super Bowl because of Patrick Mahomes. They won the defense, they won the Super Bowl because the defense was unbelievable. And they won them most of their games last year. And obviously we knew they had the receiver issues last year. They still won the Super Bowl. So it's like you got a guy in Mahomes that's just so damn clutch in the playoffs. Right now, I would say they're still the team to beat. They're definitely beatable, especially with Rice out of the lineup. But I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes until somebody's able to take him down.
I just think, and we have to let you go, but I'm going to tell you something. I just think that what I've seen with Kansas City so far this year it's embarrassing. It really is. And I don't know what everybody says.
A lot of close games.
It's a lot of close games, but this reminds me of Minnesota a couple of years ago. Remember Minnesota? They were at what? How many wins did they have? 13 wins?
They were a 13 and 4 team with like
Speaking of Minnesota, they might best team in the league right now.
Yes.
Yep. Jets legend Sam
Darnold
Darnold.
MVP, 11 touchdown passes. Former Jet. Is that getting?
Stop it. And Geno Smith, look at him. Look at Geno Smith right now. What he's doing.
Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. I mean, goodness gracious. Once they get the stink of the Jets off of them,
Jack, don't piss me off, Jack. Jack. I'm just honestly right now, if you look at Kansas City, they're not winning the championship this year. This defense is not as good as it was last year. The secondary, there's a lot of questions to what their secondary is and what it has been over the last 2 weeks. I don't think the secondary is as good without Snead. I like McDuffie, but again, I think their defense is what won them the championship last year. But everybody keeps giving it to Patrick Mahomes. Oh, Patrick. Oh, does a love fest for Patrick Mahomes. But again, to me, what Patrick Mahomes stands for is what everybody is trying to compare him to. Tom Brady and Michael Jordan. I don't think he's any of those guys. And again, I'm not saying I don't think Patrick Mahomes is a great player. He's a sensational player. I just think that everybody blows what he has done as a player, especially over the last 2 seasons, where I just don't think that this team has been a top-end offensive team. So I also believe that what Spags has done over there with Kansas City and that defense has been spectacular and deserves another chance to be a coach in this league. Hopefully somebody gives him another shot. He didn't do well in LA when he had a chance. Oh, not LA, I'm sorry, St. Louis when he was over there. It didn't work out over there. But we've seen other guys get second chances and definitely succeeded. So why couldn't
Can I just get a little word in on Jaden Daniels, man?
Yeah,
this guy is freaking unbelievable. I also do some work here at ChatSports for our Commanders channel. I do all the watch parties for our Commanders channel here. I mean, watching this guy play these last 2 weeks, it's unbelievable, man. This guy kills you from the pocket. He's throwing the ball over the middle of the field off his back foot, progressing, getting to his fourth check, getting to the checkdowns, getting to his fourth progressions, using his legs. I mean, Right now, I think you could have a solid argument. Jaden Daniels is the top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. He's just a rookie, man. He is sensational. Just wanted to get a little word in on him because,
No
goodness
question.
gracious, I mean, I know
Rookie of the year right now.
everybody's been talking about him, but Lord, I had to get my word in there too.
Listen, we speak about him, and he's high flying, and we love what he has done so far. And we've seen good quarterbacks like that. I'm not saying RG3 was anything of Jaden Daniels' talents. I almost call him Jaden McDaniel, but Jaden Daniels. But I do believe that everything that he is doing right now it's been very, very impressive. And Washington has been very, very impressive. Everything I've seen with Philadelphia, I don't know what's going on with Philadelphia.
They're the best team in the NFC East.
Yeah, no question. In Philadelphia,
Right
I have no idea. And we all know the coaching over there is putrid. And we know who's the offensive coordinator over there. Yeah, he doesn't really work with many people. He did work with Dak for a little while for all those Dak haters, but he didn't work over there with the Chargers with Justin Herbert. Look what Justin Herbert's doing right now without him. And then he goes over there to the Philadelphia Eagles and just an absolute putrid of an offense that we've seen so far. So I don't know what's going on over there, but it seems like there's turmoil again. And Hassan Reddick, for all the guys there are stories coming out that he'd go back. Why would you go back there? I think you have a better chance of winning over there with the Jets than you do over there in Philadelphia. That team is just
go to the Commanders. They need an edge rusher.
Well, that's another team that the Jets could look at, but Joe Douglas already said they're not trading him. So
Arrow would trade him if he could package Robert Saleh in the deal.
Oh, 100%. And it's not Robert. It's Bambi. Stop calling
him
him
as a DC. You know, the Commanders will take him as a DC.
Please.
Not a head coach. He can call the plays on defense, though.
Yes, I think all we need is a little Moses, so we can split the seed, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, Jack, we really appreciate the time. We'll get you on before the season's over. I think Pittsburgh will be ahead of a lot of people in this AFC. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the number 1 or number 2 seed. Very impressed with them. And Justin Fields, my guy.
Also, upcoming schedule, not that hard. You got the Cowboys banged up, think they're going to win next week. The Raiders, who stink. The Jets. We'll see what happens. I'll say that, Errol. And then we got the Giants. So very, very possibly could be sitting at 7-1 by the bye. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Maybe that'll be Bambi's last game.
Yeah, maybe it might be Bambi. Yeah, Mike Tomlin might end the career of Bambi. How about that?
Well,
Justin Fields will do you a solid.
Yeah, as far as the deer in the headlights, that guy's the king of that. That saying always fits Mr. Robert Saleh. But anyways, thank you, Jack, as always. And we'll speak a lot about Pittsburgh moving forward because, again, I'm a Justin Fields guy, and I'm excited to see what Justin Fields is going to do moving forward this year with this Pittsburgh Steelers team.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Happy to be on anytime.
Oh, absolutely. Jack Sperry, ladies and gentlemen, go check him out on YouTube. He's fantastic. All the different Pittsburgh coverage he's doing, Washington Commanders coverage. And I love Jaden Daniels. I called him Jaden McDaniels, but he might be worth more than, the Mickey D's that everybody was trying to compare him to.
You were just talking about the Timberwolves. That's why I said Timberwolves.
Listen, and we will get into some Timberwolves coverage, not tonight, but throughout the next couple of weeks, because a lot of people have the Timberwolves as the second best team right now in all of basketball. Even with this, Julius, they think this gives the Timberwolves more depth with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. We will see. But Jack Sperry is fantastic. He knows his coverage when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I told you to reach out to him because I wanted to know his take on Justin Fields. I check out his show time to time. I love what he obviously stands for. He's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And I love TJ Watt too. I never liked JJ. But TJ's a different type of personality. I think everything about him, it goes out there, and he's not like his brother. So I just love what he stands for, and we'll see. I think he's going to go down as one of the best defensive players of all time. I wouldn't be surprised. He's already surpassing his brother JJ. But by the time he's done with his career, we could compare him to some of the top 3. I mean, Aaron Donald was being compared to Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White. Why couldn't we compare TJ Watt to those guys? I think what TJ Watt has done in the last 8 seasons has been remarkable. It's been absolutely remarkable. And with obviously under one coach, Mike Tomlin, and what he is, and again, what he stands for, it's all about winning. And that's something that the Jets know nothing about is winning. So that's something that you can speak high volume when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers is they win. And that's why I think they're as dangerous as any team. And I think Justin Fields really solves that quarterback problem. He gives him speed, he gives him everything. And the one thing that makes him even more dangerous is anytime you see them, they're 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, you can trust that Justin Fields is going to get you that first down. He is a power. He really is a power back. That's a quarterback. That's what he is. But he could throw. I remember Cam Newton. Not Cam Newton. Yeah, Cam Newton. And Cam Newton, he was talking about Eli Manning just recently, and he said some interesting things about Eli Manning, saying that if Eli Manning gets one gold coat, he should get 2. I think it's a joke, but Cam Newton played that style, but Cam Newton didn't have the speed on the outside like this kid. He's a guy that's just think about this. Justin Fields is 240 pounds. That's what he is, of muscle. He's 6'2", 6'3". He's built like a bulldozer, and he's one of the fastest quarterbacks. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he can compete with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons beat him in a race, but not by much. This guy has a tremendous amount of speed. So I really do believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are as dangerous as any AFC team moving forward. So thank you to, obviously, Mr. Sperry for joining us. A lot to get into. And let's get into the New York Jets because you heard what Mr. Sperry said about and Jack. Obviously, you can't stand the New York Jets. And right now, as a New York Jet fan, a lot to get into for what I saw yesterday.